For assignment 2.4.1 structural design, you're going to be using a program called WestPointBridge Designer. And what you're going to literally do is start at the top of this assignment and read down through it. It's going to describe how to use the program. It's going to also ask you for certain criteria that you can only get when you first start the program. So if you go through and start to build a truss, you're going to have to end up starting all over again. So please read through here. Now keep in mind, this assignment might have a little bit different information, especially when you get to the cost, due to different versions of the program in with this assignment. But don't worry about that, just use whatever the program currently has. So as you scroll down this assignment, you're going to see here the cost for different members of this that you can use to build with. You're also going to see that there are a few charts. It's going to ask you to fill out some information. So for example, at the beginning of this assignment, the pictures above detail this. It wants to know what the site cost is going to be if you have a 24 meter or a 20 meter or so on and so forth. So what I literally want you to do is go through there and change the program around so that you can see what the different costs are and put those costs here. It'll ask you to change something called an abutment. It'll also ask you to change a pier, and then look at cable anchorages. And we're looking to see how this affects the cost. So I want you to change them and look at the cost difference and go ahead and record that value. Then I'm going to go through here and show you how to do all those different things. And again, like this value right here is going to be different than what the program says currently. So just write down whatever the program says. We can then look at different types of loading versus different types of concrete and the costs. And then make sure when we go to create this, we're going to choose none here so that we don't use a template. And then you just hit finish and you'll start to actually go in and design in West Point. All right. And then it's going to ask you to look at some of these properties of the materials. So if you go ahead, we can open up the program. And you'll see that it says West Point for older computers, West Point for newer computers. I tend to use the one that's for the newer computers, if you will. And it's a really neat program where you get to go through and draw a truss and test to see how it works. So we're just going to create a new bridge, and then we're going to go ahead and hit next, next, and here's where we're doing all these different changes that were referenced in the document we just talked about. So you can see down here at the bottom, here's our initial site cost, and if I make it a 20 meter site, you can see we had to do some excavation, so the price went up. And if I keep going down, you can see the price is going to go up. Okay, so we can go ahead and change that value. We can change our abutment, so we're adding different lengths, different heights for the abutments or arches, and we can change these different values to see what the price difference is going to be. So that'll ask you to go through and make these other changes. We're going to select none for our template here, and then I can go ahead and start to build. So we have the joints, the members, your arrow to select, and an eraser. And what you're going to have to do here is place joints out here in order to connect members to them. And notice that I have a grid that I'm snapping to here, which works out really nice for helping to keep things in line. You can actually choose coarse, fine, or medium grid if you want to here. So if I click the fine grid, you can see down here along the bottom, I can snap a little bit finer. So I'm going to go ahead and create members. Watch what happens to the chart at the right. It just built up. These are all the members that it just added. Then I'm going to go ahead and add members across the top here, and I'm just going to quickly create a simple truss style bridge, making sure that anywhere there's a joint, I also have that connected with at least 2 members, and in most cases 3 members. Okay, so I built up all my members over here. I can then go along the top here and I can test it to see if it works. So it'll drive a truck across here. You can see the red members are in compression, the blue members are in tension, and this one didn't work. So I go back to my build zone and I can see the ones that failed, and over here and in my chart, if I go down here, I can also see the ones that failed. What I want to do is, if it's in compression, I don't want it to be at 1, I want it to be less than 1. If it's in tension, I also want it to be less than 1. So I can go back in here, make sure I have my arrow selected. I can select this member. If I hold control, I can select multiple members. And then what I'm going to do is just increase or change the size of the member here. And then I can go ahead and test it again to see if that was strong enough. So you can see how red it's getting. That's probably not going to make it. Yeah, it didn't quite make it. So I can go back and just adjust those up one more time and go ahead and test it. And hopefully that's enough to get it to work. Alright, we made it. Some nice things on this is where you have to, in the activity where you have to change the material, here's our carbon steel high strength quenched. You'll see that different details are going to change. So if I look at the member details section over here, I can see all this information it's going to ask you to fill out in the chart. So for a carbon steel solid bar that's 160 by 160, this is the information as far as its material properties, obviously the dimensioning, our moment of inertia, so the calculation that we did here to figure out what that resistance to motion is going to be. Now this is in millimeters, so this is 160 by 160 millimeters. You can also go back and forth here at iterations, so if what you just tested wasn't right, I can go back and look at the cost and the other changes that I've done. Every time you click that test, this blue button here, it records a new iteration. Okay, so I can go back, hold this third one, there it is. Alright, so your goal is to go through here, fill out the chart to really learn how to use this program, but then in the end to build a successful truss that is the most efficient possible, and we're looking at efficiency here as cost.